Hi everybody. I wanted to make this video because I think it will help you understand the difference between a raster image and a vector image and why you need to create your logo in Illustrator from scratch. And I want to also give you a tip as well if you are struggling with some of the Illustrator tools. So I had a couple of you ask, can we use images in our logo? And basically what that is if you're using an image, say you find online, say you go online, you're looking for a cupcake image and you say, oh, you know, I really like this, maybe this one or this one. I'm going to use that and I'm just going to place this into my logo like that. Well, there's definitely some things wrong with that, one of which is it's a raster-based image. So what does that mean? Raster-based image is basically an image that is pixel dependent. So it depends on pixels to create the image. So you can see on the right here, there's a letter A, and this is a raster A. So it's comprised of all these little pixels. And it can look really sharp if, you know, this is kind of if you zoom in on it really, really close, you'll see these little pixels. But that's what's comprising this letter A on the right here. That's a raster A. On the left is considered a vector, and that's comprised of your selection, your anchor points that, you know, these little selection points here. And vector art is, and I don't know the exact technical side of this, I just know that a vector-based program comprises images from mathematical equations and lines. So instead of being pixel dependent, it's pixel independent. So it doesn't need pixels to create an image. So the difference between the two is on the right, the raster-based image, if you were to use a logo with raster, it's a raster image. If you go beyond a certain size, so like let's say you're designing a logo and you're using one of those raster-based images in your logo and it looks great. You know, on a business card, there's no pixelization, it looks really sharp. But then the client comes to you and says, you know, we need this blown up into a billboard size. Now, billboard sizes are huge, like they go by the feet. So that's when you'll actually hit a snag, because once you go beyond a certain point of enlarging and scaling up, the raster will fall apart and it will look pixelated. I'm sure many of you have seen maybe ads out there that, you know, has a low res image, has pixelization, and that's what that is. It's blowing it up past the resolution that is needed. So what's bad about that is the logo will be shown in a way that it shouldn't be. It's not consistent, and brand recognition is super important. So the logo has to look the same all the time in order to be successful. You know, if it's looking like it's pixelated in one area, it's degrading that brand recognition. So you put all that time and energy into it, but then it looks different in different applications, and that's not what we want. We want your logo to be versatile. So it needs to be created in Illustrator. Illustrator is a vector-based program, and that's why we design logos only in Illustrator. Photoshop is a raster-based program, so that's the difference between the two. Photoshop is used for manipulating, color changing images that are raster-based, and Illustrator is used for illustrations, typography, logo design. So there's, you know, just kind of understanding the differences and why you wouldn't use just an image that you found online, you know, in your work. Another thing about using an image from online, like let's just say you really like this and you're going to just drag this off onto your desktop, which is super easy to do, and anybody can do it. And you go into your Illustrator page here to place it in here. Let's see, here we go. Okay, voila. And then you think, okay, well, I'm just gonna add this name. And I have a logo. And maybe I need to get rid of that bottom part here, which I could show you in a second, but I just want to explain this here before I go forward. So I'm just going to do a real quick cover up just for now. So you say, oh, okay, this looks great. This is, you know, this is it. This is my logo. I'm going to use this. Well, the problem with this is it's somebody else's work. You can't do that. Copyright infringement. You might be able to find some clip art out there that is free and free to use. But remember, clip art is accessible to anybody. And if it's accessible to anybody, that automatically makes your logo not very unique, right? Because anybody can use it for any type of marketing or application. So you're taking that uniqueness out of the equation. So you want your logo to be unique. You want it to be a vector-based logo. You can't, you know, obviously when I watch what happens when I zoom in here. You can see all those little pixels, see that? So that's the problem. If you have a originally designed, say if you recreated this in Illustrator using vector, you know, like the pen tool, you'll notice a big difference, okay? That's the way that you want to do it. So that's the explanation. Do not use any clip art. It just takes away from the uniqueness. Do not use imagery in there. Any raster-based images are a no-no. So my suggestion, if you are finding that the tools in here, like say the pen tool, is kind of hard to use and you still need practice with it, you can do, you know, a simple trace of something that you see out there. So let's say you wanted to do a tracing of this. You can take the pen tool. All you would need to do is lock this layer. So go select that. Let's lock it. That way you can't move it around and it's all good. Take your pen tool. Now this pen tool is hard at first to get used to, and I will be posting to announcements just a little game that you guys can play to get used to this pen tool very shortly here. But what you could do is just go ahead and trace, and you know, I'm going to make it look really easy. Let me switch this here because I've worked with this tool forever. So don't get frustrated and think, oh my gosh, she makes it look so easy. I mean, I've been doing this for 20 some years and I have a lot of experience with this tool. Now, I have been frustrated with this tool whenever I was a college student. So, you know, it's one of those things that you just have to practice. And then you take your direct selection tool. These are called vector points, these little squares here. But how I did these are called handlebars, and how I did that was when I was setting my points, I clicked and dragged out those points. And like I said, I will be posting the Bezier tool game you guys can play around with and kind of get the hang of this tool if you are wanting to use this for, you know, tracing or, you know, whatever within your logo. So, you know, you can refine this. I could sit here and just refine this. I'm just going to do this really quickly so you can see. So it's not going to look super, super professional here, but get it so close. So say you like the shape, but you want to change it because, you know, you don't really want to copy somebody else's work. You're going to manipulate these lines. The less amount of points, the more smooth your lines will be. So, and if you lose your Bezier curve, you can always go in here and get those back. And that would be under this pen tool. It's the anchor point tool. Shift and C on your keyboard takes you right to that. And you go over a point that doesn't have handlebars, just click and drag that out. And that'll give you those handlebars. And then take your direct selection tool to, to pull those handlebars out, to manipulate it and do whatever you want. Okay, so this is one option that you could do. You can, you know, totally trace this as your shape. I'm going to fill this now. And this would be considered a vector-based closed shape. I'm going to unlock my picture so I can move it out of the way. Okay. So, you know, you remember when I zoomed in really close here, you could see all those little pixels. Well, I'm going to slide over and I'm going to show you what we just created with our pen tool. Look how it's nice and sharp. This will never, ever, ever be blurry, even if you blew it up past billboard size. Okay, so that's why you do a logo in Illustrator, and you use these tools. You can even use your shape tools. You don't have to do the pen tool, use your shape tools. But no, the direct selection tool is the tool that you want if you want to manipulate, you have to click off of it too, to select a particular anchor point. But this is how you would manipulate a shape using your white arrow, your direct selection tool. You have to click off of it, click back right on the edge of the line, not on the actual anchor point, to change it. Okay, and then the selection tool is for moving, maybe resizing, doing other stuff too, maybe rotating. Let's see, where's my rotate? Right there, rotate, and also deleting if you hit delete. So you could do it this way. Also, there's another trick that I wanted to show you that you might want to try, and I showed a student this before, and I think I created a video about this too. Let's say you're really frustrated with the pen tool and you just want to have this sketched out super quick, but you need to change it so it doesn't look like the original. Place it in, find a really nice, I just went in and looked up cupcake icon images, and that gave me some icons to use, which is good for tracing. When you place it into Illustrator and you select it, in your properties panel, if you don't see properties, go up to window and choose properties. Way at the bottom it says quick actions, and you're going to choose image trace. And when you choose this, it's going to give you a drop down menu of options to do. You can do high fidelity photo, low fidelity, 3-color. This is just breaking it down to how detailed you want it to be. If you did, like, for instance, line art, watch what happens. It's going to do a simple line art. And some of it might not even come out. Black and white logo, that might actually work perfectly. But you can also do 16 color, and it kind of gives you more pixels within, not pixels, more selection points when you do that. Okay, I'm just going to go with black and white logo because I think that's going to work. And then the important part of this is hitting this expand when you're ready. And what that does is it takes it from a raster image and it converts it to a vector image. So now all you need to do, important step, go up to object with it selected and choose ungroup. Right now it's grouped together. So if you were to want to say delete this bottom part, you can't really do it because it's all grouped. So you want to go up to object ungroup and then select whatever you want to get rid of, this whole background. Zoom in on this and you'll see when you select parts of this, let me see if I can show you. See how there's selection points here now. So now it is a vector-based image. The only bad thing about this is if you want to manipulate any of these, you're going to have to go in and actually click on each one of these. Like say if you wanted to get rid of this heart, we'd have to actually click with your direct selection tool on each of these anchor points and hit delete, and then close the shape if you need to fill it. So it's it could be a little time consuming. Let's say we get rid of this. Also, just kind of playing around with what's in the background here. Okay, and then filling it with color. So there it is. Where'd that heart go? Trying to select the heart, but it must be behind here. Okay, so maybe I want to get rid of this stuff here. I'm just hitting delete, delete, delete. So let's say we want to just fill this with a color. Let's do like a pink. Oh, that's another thing. Okay, hold on. That's the only thing that is a little frustrating when you do it this way, which is kind of a nice, easy approach to it, because then you don't have to trace it. But there's so many layers to this that you're going to have to like really kind of eliminate things that you don't need. Like, let's see if I can select this now. Okay. Yeah, it's a little frustrating. It can be a little frustrating to work with. That's the only thing. And to color and all that good stuff. Yeah, see, it's not even coloring. Let me see what my color mode is here. RGB. Okay. So in this case, what I would probably do is go ahead and this is, like I said, if you just do this with a pen tool, it's so much easier. You're just going to have to copy and paste and then put this back in the background. I must kind of do like a layer effect there, okay, to give it a color. That's the only frustrating thing about it, is because it's tracing that image, you kind of have to do some extra things with it. So now all you would have to do is make sure that your logo and your name, so this would be considered a combination mark because it has the name in type and then also a mark to go with it. And the biggest thing with this is knowing how to balance your mark with your with the name. And I do see a lot of people doing stuff like this where the mark is extremely huge and the name is really small. Now, remember that this logo will be used on really tiny things like an envelope, you know? So you don't want that your logo to be off balance where when you scale it down to being very small for like an envelope, for instance, where you can't read it. Okay, so scaling it down small once you kind of get your logo design ready and you think it looks good, scale it down to about 1 inch and just see, you know, if it's readable. Okay, so you want that name to be the focal point, really. I mean, you really want this to lock in together very nicely so it's balanced. So what I always like to say is just kind of make the mark lock in with the type nicely so it's not the focal point, but maybe something that pulls the eye in. And then explore with your typefaces in Illustrator. You can go online and download free fonts if you can't find anything that would work for this. This one is called Sign Painter. But you can go online and actually do like, let's see, free fonts. So 101 fonts, you can type in the actual name where it says preview. Oops, upper crust. And then once you hit return, it's going to show you, oh, that's kind of nice. Different typefaces, and then you can choose a category. So up here you can choose like calligraphy or decorative, and then all these fonts will show up based on that word. I'm going to hit download because I kind of like this. This says free for personal use too. Kind of some fonts, excuse me, you have to pay for or you can't use for commercial use. But because this is school, you guys are good just as long as you know that there are some fonts that are free that you might not be able to use for commercial purposes. You might need to buy a font. And typically what happens is you'll talk to the client and say, you know, we have this font, it would be perfect, you know, is it in the budget? Or you just kind of show it to them. So this is called Angelina, and I just downloaded that font onto my font book. So once I download it, it should come up in my thing here. Okay, so this looks pretty cool. It's a little like close together, so I just have to change my leading, which in your character box, this is your point size. So it's 48 points right now, and I can make it bigger, smaller right here, as you can see. And then this is the leading. So this would be the space in between. And it defaults up to 72, but you can go higher than that. You could type it in. So I would probably say maybe like 120. Yeah, that's a little bit too far away. You don't want it too far. So I'm going to kind of edge it back up here. Oops. 0, 0. There we go. You don't want it to kind of clash together. Now, you don't necessarily have to have the whole logo in that same font. Like you, for instance, you could have, let's do, and I would say I have upper crust bigger than bakery. You could do something like that. Or you could change the word bakery and have it in a very neutral typeface and spread out the words a little bit. And obviously we would have to change the leading here. So you could do something like that. And then you can take your line tool, just a couple suggestions, and maybe do something really cool with the line tool. The line tool, let me give it a stroke of black. And I'm going to do a copy. And you could do something like that, where it's kind of a little bit more balanced. I probably would bring this up a little bit more. Let's see where we at. Maybe like right there, just a little bit more up. And this is just a nice little accent that's not too much. You're not going too crazy. And then I would make this just a little bigger. And then you could add to this. Make sure that this is, I'm going to group. So I just select it all, and then I hit Object Group, which is Command G. I want to select my copy and my cupcake, and I want to make sure that this is perfectly centered because I'm going with a centered look. So I'm going to go up to Window, and I'm going to go to Align, and I'm going to choose this first or second button, Horizontal Align Center, and that just pops it into place where it's perfectly centered now. Then I can move my other lines based on that. You can also, kind of give it a pop of color, just the type, select the type, take your eyedropper, and grab it from, maybe an image that you have or your cupcake. Ungroup this. You don't necessarily have to go with all black. I would say stay within 2 to 3 colors. Usually the less colors, the better for a logo, just because it looks more cohesive. Let me do like maybe a darker brown here. Here we go. I'm gonna do like a brown in my swatches. And then just unify your, unify that within your copy by making, maybe one word, that color, that same color, to connect it so it looks connected and it's not so, black is when you should design your logo first in black and white, and then kind of start playing with the color. Black is a very harsh color. It works for definitely certain things, but for a cupcake company, you want to make sure that it's not super, super harsh. Because if you think about a bakery, it's light and fluffy, and it's not so dark and heavy. Okay, now that doesn't mean that you won't be designing a black and white. So as you go forward, let me show you real quick, and I'm going to make this smaller. I'm going to copy and paste this. I grouped it, and I'm going to go into my and this is a very, I hope I'm not overwhelming you. This is a little bit more advanced. But if you go to your scale tool, which is in your toolbar, if you hit S on your keyboard, it will go to that. And you double click right on top of it with your logo selected as a group. You can uniformly scale this down, say like 50%, so that you can see if this works for, say, like for like an envelope. I would say go down around 1.5 inches to 2 inches just to see if it works. And this is just how you would test the logo out to see if it actually would work in other applications. Another thing that you can do too is, let me scale this down, and what you will be doing in the future once you do get your logo ready to go, is making it black and white. Now there's different ways you can do this. Let's see here. Here's my color settings, edit colors, there we go. So under edit, you can go to edit colors and you can convert it to grayscale. You can do, I thought there was a black, overprint black. I don't think that's it. Let me do grayscale so you guys can at least see it. What you're gonna probably wanna do though, because this is gonna show, well, you could probably do this if you want to. You could do it in one of two ways. You can do this, let's see here, convert to grayscale. So just what this would look like if it was printed, say on a black and white printer, you know, if your client didn't have the funds to print all color on something, which happens, or maybe if something's being faxed and copied, that's what it's going to look like. You can also, if you're just wanting to do all black, you know, obviously you're going to be doing this as you go forward. You're just going to select each part and make it black and white. So you have your black and white version to show as well. So just play around. What I did here with the upper crust is I made this larger than bakery, and that's called hierarchy. And I placed bakery down below so that it supports it, but it's emphasized differently. Upper crust should be the emphasis. If you have the other clients, think about what should be emphasized name-wise, what shouldn't be, and balance that out. You know, not everything should be emphasized equally, because what happens if that's the case, if everything has equal emphasis, it's fighting for your attention. Therefore, the viewer won't know where to look first, second, third. And basically, as visual communicators, we are trying to help the viewer view it very easily together, or have the eye flow in a way that needs, you know, that's easier to view and understand. Okay. So, you know, just a few tips there. I know some people were asking about the RasterVsVector, so that's my explanation about that. And then also using clip art, I told you that's kind of a no-no and why. And then I gave you some ideas on how to trace, maybe something that you did find and change it so that it's unique and that it's a vector-based image. And then I showed you some examples of how to use hierarchy and typography to enhance and unify your logo. And just remember the principles of what makes an effective logo work. You want it to be simple, yet not boring. So that's the line that you have to balance. You have to have it very simple so that it can be applied on other things. Think about, a logo is not always just printed on paper. It could be etched in glass on a door. It could be burned into wood. It could be on material like clothing, merchandise. So it has to be simple, not a lot of details. If you have so many details, you know, if this cupcake had tons of detail in it, it will get lost, you know, in certain applications. So that means it's not versatile. So you want your logo to be simple, memorable, and those two go hand in hand, because if it's simple but unique enough, it will be memorable. You want it to be versatile, meaning it could be applied anywhere, basically, and still work. Scale-wise too, like, you know, large, small. It could work on different spaces of applications, you know, thinner areas of space versus thicker, wider. And then also you want it to be timeless. Timeless just means that it doesn't look dated, so you're not using, you know, it doesn't look old or trendy where it's going to, you know, kind of look cliche after a year and then lose its interest. You want it to be timeless, like that little black dress in your closet that you can, you know, have it be versatile enough so in the future, maybe 5-10 years from now, it could be, you know, changed a little bit to maybe update it, but it should be timeless in where it's not looking dated and old very soon after. And then the last thing to think about, so you have simple, memorable, versatile, timeless, and appropriate. So appropriate means, is the color appropriate? You know, if you were doing this for a funeral home, you probably wouldn't use this typeface, right? So this typeface works for this bakery because, you know, bakeries are fun and this almost looks like the icing on a cake, you know, the writing, but I wouldn't use it for a funeral home. You know, that's more conservative. So that would be appropriate. You know, make sure that you're using the appropriate typeface, the appropriate mark, and the appropriate color. Checklist off of all of those. And I listed this in announcements too, what makes a logo work, all those 5 principles. So make sure you, once you're done creating your logo and refining it, use that checklist to make sure you're hitting upon all of those. All right, well, I hope this helps. Don't forget, save your AI file when you're done, so that way you can always go back to it and change it. And whenever you're ready to submit it going forward, just make sure that you're also providing a PDF, which should be, you know, so you'll have 2 files, AI and PDF when you go forward. All right, guys, hope this helps.